Pleased to be joined by our good buddy Kevin Ryans out there in St. Louis. First off, Kevin, let's just talk big picture. Number one, how have you been since the last time we talked to you? I know Missouri has picked up a big win. We'll dive into that, but how are things your way in the sports world?
We're super busy here in St. Louis. The Blues are well underway, and so we're getting after it with the hockey, and then of course the college football is taking a little bit more center stage. We got college basketball coming up here in the next few weeks. Illinois, Missouri, SIU Edwardsville went to the NCAA tournament last year for the first time. Lindenwood, St. Louis, Josh Schertz, former coach of Indiana State, with Robbie Avila, the Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, we used to call him over in Indiana State.
I forgot about that.
So a lot going on here in St. Louis, led by the Blues and them trying to get back to the postseason again.
Absolutely, yeah. We might dive into that a little bit towards the end of this conversation as hockey really ramps up here in the first week of the regular season. But first, let's start with Missouri. Obviously, lost to Alabama. They played well in that football game in a lot of ways. I know they want to have some things back. However, they bounced back really nicely. A double overtime win on the road in a really tough place to play there, Gerhard Stadium. I think you see it all over Coach Drink's face right there. What do you make of Missouri's performance there to be able to bounce back after the first loss of the season?
Yeah, those guys showed a lot of toughness, didn't they, Gerhard? They were resilient. They fell down by a score or two early and were able to pick it up defensively and get some good scores before halftime. Really kept that game at 10-7, 17-10 for a while. And then, of course, Auburn scores a little bit late. They teams force overtime, back and forth in the double overtime. And I really enjoyed seeing Mizzou going to a road environment, a tough stadium over in Auburn with a big crowd, a big SEC crowd. When you think of the SEC, you think of the Auburn or the Alabamas, the Georgias, right? And those fantastic stadiums that they play in. And they were able to go on the road and earn a win. That showed me a lot, for sure, because I was really skeptical. The front part of that schedule, Mizzou was, obviously it was all at home for the first 6 weeks. And then those first four opponents were teams that Missouri should win against and should win easily against. And they did for the most part. And then so the last couple of games showed me a ton. One driving for the win against Alabama. Didn't quite work out, but they still had an opportunity. And then to be able to gut out a overtime win against Auburn. Pretty impressive stuff. And I think Missouri has more than earned its place in the conversation for the college football playoff to this point. They still have a lot of work to do.
One of the big, sorry, Patrick. One of the big things about this team going into the season was the race for QB1. Well, that problem got solved at the beginning of the season because, unfortunately, Brady Cook goes down. What do you make of what Bo Perbula has been able to do ever since being QB1? And as you mentioned, now going on the road and having that on his resume as well.
The last few weeks, I think, have been a little bit more shaky. He's been a little bit more turnover prone than he might have been earlier on in the season. So I think protecting the football and not putting your defense in dicey situations needs to be something that Bo goes out and fixes and works on. But he's done a nice job for the most part. He has a tremendous running back in Ahmad Hardy, who has had a couple of games here where he hasn't been as explosive. You expect that with some of the better SEC defenses coming up on the schedule. But he's been able to, use his passing game, which is something that, was a question mark going into the season, whether or not he was going to be able to throw the ball as well as he has. He's been able to find his receivers, his tight ends. And then, once in a while you see the flashes of why they did bring him in. He was, mobile quarterback, a guy that uses his legs a lot. And you saw that a ton in Penn State when he would come in relief. And you're seeing the flashes of the reason why the Mizzou believed in him and gave him the NIL to be able to come over here to Mizzou. So I think he's done a solid job. But I think if you ask Coach Drinkwitz and I think if you ask Bo Perbula, there's still a lot to be able to get better at, especially with the thick of the SEC still to come.
Kevin, before we move on to the Vanderbilt game coming up, There's no question it's been rough for the Auburn offense this year. How do you think the Mizzou defense played in a road environment in a double overtime game?
Wow. Did you guys see Zion Young? That
Yeah.
guy was
All
all
over the place.
the field, especially in the fourth quarter and overtime. What a statement by the Mizzou defense the last few weeks. That was one of the things that I was most concerned about, particularly in the secondary, mostly because actually the defensive line, that front, has played really well all year long. Not many quarterbacks, the mobile quarterbacks that they face, Lenore Sellers and Jalen Daniels and
Right.
whatnot, they have not had the success against Mizzou's defense, running the ball as you might have expected, and that's all credit to that Mizzou front. But I was expecting, a lot more higher scoring because of the secondary. You got to give Mizzou credit on all fronts. They've been really good, especially in that defensive line. And Zion Young was the key to that Mizzou win. He wreaked havoc against Auburn. It was a lot of fun to watch.
He was the guy that I think a lot of people, he burst on the scene at SEC Media Day.
Yes, I was literally about to ask you, was this the guy that was talking about alpha males?
Yes. Talking about the alpha males and the tigers and the cats, and he just seems so comfortable in his own skin. I know he's from Atlanta, and so he was playing just down the road from where he went to high school. Do you think that there's been there's probably an extra chip on his shoulder to be able to play and perform well? I'm guessing a lot of his friends from the Atlanta area made their way down I-85 for that ball game to be able to come down there and see him, because like you said, he played lights out.
You know what? I have to assume so, but you wouldn't be an Eli Drinkwitz player if you didn't have something to prove. STP, it's what they've been preaching ever since he's been here. It's in 2020. So Eli Drinkwitz loves those guys with chips on their shoulder, and Zion Young definitely has that.
Absolutely. We got a chance to hear from Coach Drink early on about that win and his quarterback, Bo Prabula.
This team, we talked all week about the game was played between the lines and not to let the exterior factors of the noise in the stadium affect us. And I thought those guys did a great job. And I just thought there was a refusal to lose. And, he's got a great grit to him. And he nothing really phases him. I think disappointing right there. I should have done a better job at the end of the game when we had the ball at the 30-yard line. That's on me. I got to do a better job of getting us 5 more yards to make that kick. Can't go backwards like that. And then that's not on him. On that last play, he's just trying to give us a chance to get into field goal range. So, but really.
Kevin, Eli right there was just talking about how the play call that kind of knocked him out of field goal range in overtime. What did you make out of that? It seemed like he kind of took the blame rather than put it on Bo Prabula. What did you make of that?
Yeah, Eli Drinkwitz has been very candid about how not only do the players need to get better, but the coaches need to be better too, and that was a good example of that. So, not every time when players make mistakes is it their fault. Sometimes the coaches don't put them necessarily in the best position to be able to succeed, and that might have been an opportunity right there to be able to put them in better position to score. It didn't happen. Eli Drinkwitz said that he and his coaches will learn from it. I love the candidness about that, and I love that he, is able to take one on the chin. Drinkwitz always going to bat and defending his players, which is great.
Absolutely. The games previous, whether it was Central Arkansas or Louisiana or UMass or maybe Kansas, that might be a game where most people saw on the ticker on the bottom of the TV screen or floating as far one of the games they have on their phones. Well, not this year, not this week. All eyes of the college football world will be on Missouri this week as College Game Day comes to town there in Vanderbilt. How do you think that this team will handle, the stage getting even bigger? I think you heard from Coach Drink, and he did a good job explaining the way that he handled going to Auburn. But now being the marquee game of college football, how do you think his team handles this one against number 10 Vanderbilt?
They don't have any other job than to go on the road, go to the visitor locker room, as Eli Drinkwitz said today, come out and play a football game. All that other distraction and hoopla, all that is nice. And Mizzou's had SEC Nation there a couple of times this year, so the pomp and circumstance are sort of used to that. So I don't think they're approaching it other than going to Vanderbilt, trying to win it in a road environment and play as good of a football game as possible. Prepare for a team that is very, very tough with a very, very smart quarterback in Diego Pavia. Some of the plays that he made against LSU Mizzou is going to have a really tough time trying to contain just how savvy he is and how he can improvise from play to play. He is so impressive. I think that is their main focus this week, is how are they going to go out and, as a defense, stop that and his ability to create and improvise on the run, and how they're going to be able to go out and score against a good Vanderbilt team.
Kevin, we talked with KCK up in Knoxville earlier on the show, and I proposed a hypothetical scenario where Vanderbilt and Tennessee could be playing for a spot in the college football playoff at the end of the year.
That'd be cool.
Literally. How about this week? Could we see the winner of this game between Vanderbilt and Missouri in the college football playoff this year, do you think?
There's no question. Missouri, I've said it from time to time. I've been on here saying it. If they could take care of the last half of their schedule, they'll 1,000% be in the conversation for the college football playoff. And I think they've done a great job the last couple of weeks keeping themselves in the conversation for sure. Close loss against Alabama at home, tough, gritty win at Auburn on the road. But Mizzou still has a lot of challenges left. Vanderbilt's on the schedule. Texas A&M's on the schedule. Oklahoma's on the schedule. Yes, it could very well be one of these teams could be playing in the CFP. But in terms of Mizzou, look at all the teams that they have left there on the schedule.
Yeah.
It's not gonna be easy for them, and they know that. They know that they have a lot of work to do. And but in the same breath, this is the opportunity for them. Another top 15 matchup. We saw this a couple of weeks ago. Mm-hmm. They didn't quite take care of business. They were close, but didn't quite take care of business against Alabama. This is another chance for them to get a top 10 win, a game that they usually do not win.
Right.
Since Eli Drinkwitz has been here. Can they get this standout win and really catapult their chances and really put themselves in good position over the next month or so to be able to put themselves into the college football playoff?
Absolutely. You mentioned Ahmad Hardy a moment ago, and Missouri comes into this football game as the #1 rushing team in the entire SEC. Hardy's been a bit bottled up by the last two defenses he's played, Alabama and Auburn. And I think a lot of the defenses said, hey, we're going to let anybody else but this guy beat us. But he found a nice RB2, so to speak, in Jamal Roberts. What do you make of his production and just kind of being able to be a nice balance there to still get production in the running game through Roberts?
Jamal Roberts, St. Louis and St. Mary's product. So very, very happy to see him succeed here in the St. Louis area. Yeah, Jamal Roberts, more of a bruising back. Able to take those big hits and try to get those tough yards there on short yardage. And he showed the ability to be able to break out and close a game as well. Did it against Kansas, had a 50-yard run, a touchdown to be able to seal a game. I've really enjoyed seeing his growth and maturation as a player, as a running back. And they complement each other so well. You can really go no wrong with either Ahmad Hardy or Jamal Roberts over there in the backfield, because they can both really help change a game with the way that they run.
One of the big things about, I think, this football team is the fact that they've been able to not listen to any of the outside noise. I know Coach Eli Drinkwitz will be one of the hot names that comes up as more and more of these marquee jobs open up. If there has been any maybe talk outside or rumblings outside in the fan base about being able to keep Drinkwitz, or if his eye might be elsewhere for whether it's connective reasons from other jobs or whatever. I'm always interested in kind of the hot profile coaches, whether they're using these openings to get more money from their school, or maybe even thinking about making a move to another, whether it's university or the NFL.
Well, the St. Louis Post-Dispatch today, Eli Hoff is their reporter, reported about potentially Drinkwitz maybe getting another contract extension. I know he had one, I think, in February of this year. Of course, you got to assume that's because the talk around the nation is true, that this guy is a hot commodity. He's shown that he can build a program and take him to big bowl games like the Cotton Bowl, the Music City Bowl, and win those big time games. Go up against some of the big programs across the country and beat them in the national stage. And so you got to think that if the big newspaper is reporting that there is some truth to some rumors that maybe that there is interest around the country, but you won't hear that from Eli Drinkwitz for sure.
Yeah.
This guy is as focused as can be about his Missouri Tigers week in and week out. He tries to deflect any noise about whether it's him or any of his assistants. I don't know if you guys caught the whole Kirby Moore deal where, he might have been interviewing for Arkansas and he just ripped the report and saying it's not true.
Yep.
It's, it's BC. So, I know that Eli Drinkwitz, having covered him since he started here in Missouri back in 2020, he's very focused on what his team needs to do and is going to deflect all the outside noise and not bring that into any light.